Welcome to the Unofficial Steelers Podcast, the podcast so unofficial it doesn't have a home. Here's your host, from In Hindsight, Nathan Heintz. From Steelers Nation Australia, Mark Davidson. And from State of the Steelers, Daniel J. Here we go.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Unofficial Steelers Podcast. I'm your host from State of the Steelers, Daniel J. Alongside with me, Nathan Heintz from In Hindsight. Nathan, how you doing tonight?
Not too bad, man. Got a couple hours of sleep this morning. Had to be up 7:30 for work, and then I got home, took a fat nap. So had to do what I had to do, but doing not too bad tonight, man. Daniel is officially actually out here where I'm at. You're probably about 40 minutes away from me right now.
Nice. Yeah, I am on location. I'll be at the game tomorrow. The Pittsburgh Steelers will be taking on the Cleveland Browns at 1 o'clock Eastern in Acrisure Stadium. This is it, y'all. This is the last game of the season, possibly. There's a good chance that perhaps they have another week. We'll see. There's some puzzle pieces that need to fall in place, and we'll get into all of that. But before we do, I normally do a mailbag segment, but because I was traveling, I wasn't able to record it. So today we'll answer those questions together. And the first question statement that I wanted to go through with you is from Glenn Carrier. He says, DJ, what's going on? Not much of a question, but Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts, both tacklers landed full body, weight on both of them, and were knocked out of the game. One flag was thrown. Now the Pittsburgh Steelers would have done that to them. Every ref on the field would have thrown a flag. Just wanted to vent, but I got a question for you. Do you think that the Pittsburgh Steelers are flagged too much or over excessively compared to the rest of the teams in the NFL?
It's a good question. I feel like other fan bases might feel the same way about their own teams, maybe. Shout out to Mark real quick before I get to that. Mark, what's up, man? Mark's not here. He's not able to make it. He's out looking for a table to jump through. To jump on that question, though, continually, I don't know, man. I think it's hit or miss. I think there's times the Steelers aren't penalized much in games, maybe like that they've gotten away. Like I remember last year, the Monday night game against Chicago, they barely got through that one and stuff wasn't called against them. I feel like it just varies, man. Honestly, I don't think that there's a vendetta against the Steelers or anything like that. I mean, the Steelers, man, the NFL wants the Steelers to be good. They do. The Steelers bring the NFL money. The Steelers are one of NFL's prized franchises. I don't think that there's a vendetta against them. I think it's something from a fan standpoint. You might, in a certain game, see this or that, or you might see the opposite. So I don't think that there's anything there. But I feel like fans from other teams can say the same exact thing, honestly. I really do.
I agree. At a certain point, I agree. I think that on the offensive side, there's been some roughing the passer calls that aren't called for our quarterback that are typically called for other quarterbacks. So I can see where that angle comes from. As far as the flags going towards the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, again, on offense, I feel like they get called or dinged for holding more than other teams. Especially when you see TJ Watt getting held.
Right. I mean, that's
constantly.
Constant. Yeah, it's constant, dude. It really is. And there was one thing I was going to say. What was I going to say about the Steelers calls? I can't remember. I had a thought in my mind while you were talking to mention about it. I can't remember. But yeah, Gene even says too, sometimes it depends on the ref crew. I mean, it really does. You have different, you have some, the NFL officiating all around is garbage. We all know this, but there are certain ref crews that ref a different way than others and that call the ticky tacks compared to what others do. There's ref crews that don't call crap. So like last week, against the Ravens, they weren't calling anything on the Ravens at all. They weren't calling holding at all on them. So it is what it is. But the thing that's just really frustrating with the NFL officiating is how much power they have involved in a game. And this goes for any team. The referees will win or lose a game for whatever team it is they're officiating. They have too much power involved. And that's an issue. And that's something that the NFL won't change, sadly.
No, I agree. And to a certain extent, I feel like sometimes the refs are throwing flags to make games more interesting. And, I get it, views and drama into the game, create, more of a, stream of income, so to speak, because of the fan base wanting to, be more invested into the teams, into the games and whatnot. But, when your team is a team that likes to live close to the edge and every game is a one-score game one way or the other, those flags can really make, put some damage on there. Next question is from Sound of Renegade. That's an awesome name. It says, do you feel like this game on Sunday will be an easy win or the defense have to hold it down again? What do you think?
Yeah, I like that name. That's a unique name. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be an easy game. I think Cleveland, they're going to have, obviously they're eliminated from playoff contention, but they're going to have, they're going to play. They're going to play to try to spoil the Steelers and stuff like that. Sean Watson struggled last week, and then second half of the game, he played really well. So who knows what we're going to get out of him. I think the Steelers are going to have to limit some plays down the field. So I expect this to be another Steeler game that we've really seen all year, winning or losing by one scores.
I agree. It's going to be a close game. I think that, the Steelers do have an opportunity to pull away from the Browns. They're out of playoff contention. Jadeveon Clowney here was sent home recently because he didn't want to practice or something like that. And then he made the statement that he fully doesn't intend on being a Cleveland Brown next season. And so there's a little bit of turmoil going on in the Cleveland team. And so I think this could be an opportunity for the Steelers to capitalize and maybe, win by 10. We'll see. We have two
I'd
more
love to
questions.
see him blow him out of the water.
Oh, yeah, I would too. Especially since I'm going to be there. I want to have a good time, stress-free.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. You will. I don't think the weather should be that. It'll obviously probably be chilly, but I don't think it should be that bad in terms of how winter weather that be.
No, I think it's going to be somewhere around between 38 and 40 degrees. So it should be okay. Yeah. It's a little bit cooler than what I'm used to back home in Texas, but it's not too shabby.
Yeah.
The Arsenal. Oh, go ahead.
No, I said, yeah, you'll get through it.
I'm sure we will, especially if the game's going well and people are jumping up and down and high-fiving and stuff like that, getting the blood pumping. I think it's definitely going to help with the temperature.
Yes.
Two more. We have the Arsenal DB. He's also a YouTube content creator. He's been on the show before, or on my show before. He talks Steelers football. He goes, who is your team MVP for the Steelers right now?
I think it's Minka, man. I think they got it right with the team MVP. I mean, the guy's having an all-pro season. The guy has caused multiple turnovers on any team or against any of the teams. I think that you can make a case for Alex Highsmith, but Minka's just playing again at an all-pro level, which last year he was getting flack for because he wasn't making enough splash plays. But the thing is, he was playing out of position all the time last year because running backs are running free all year over the defense. So I think Minka is rightfully deserved as the team MVP. I think he's been the best player on the team this year. And I think certain games that he affected, if he wasn't involved in that, they probably would have lost. But he was, at least in my opinion, and I think most will agree, that he's been, in terms of when you look at not just defense, but I think all around, he's the one that's made the most impact on this team this year.
I agree 100%. I was going to go with Minka Fitzpatrick as well as being the team MVP. I echo the words you say when, I think the Steelers got it right. He's also there's a touchdown that should be on his stats that he doesn't have because he
Yeah.
ran out of bounds.
Yeah.
And so, all in all, I think he's done a fantastic job this year. Another year proven as to why that trade that Miami gave up for just one single first-round pick was a steal.
It's funny to look back at that because when that trade happened, I was all for it. I knew that the season looked lost again. Oh, top 5 pick, but I was all for it, dude, because this guy is someone that at that point in time was like, all right, he can be a really special player. And really ever since we acquired him, he has completely turned the defense around the last 3 to 4 years. I'm not saying it's just only been him. They've had some good players as well along the way, like not counting TJ or Cam, but, Joe Hayden's been there and to it during that time and stuff too. But in terms of really having somebody back there they haven't had since Paul Malu, like he's easily been our best safety since then. And he's going to be a 3 or 4 time All-Pro already. So, yeah. I mean, the Steelers easily fleece the Dolphins, dude. And I think anybody would take that trade that they did in a heartbeat.
Oh, for sure. For sure. The Steelers have done some great things. I mean, look at what Claypool's going to bring them back. It looks like, 33?
Yeah.
30, 34,
first pick of the second round.
Yeah. I mean, who knows?
Jeez,
maybe.
When's the last time they had that?
Right. Terry Bradshaw.
Yeah. Yeah. Back in those days.
Yeah. They had the first overall pick with Terry Bradshaw. So I'm assuming they also had the first pick in the second round as well.
Yeah. They did.
Let's see. And the last question comes from Gene Smith, who's in the live chat. Thank you for joining us, Gene.
Yep. Appreciate you.
He says, now this question was before the NFL came out with their the outcome of the game between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Buffalo Bills. But he asks, what does the NFL do with a game that causes so many playoff outcomes? And so, what do you think? Do you think that the NFL got it right with the playoff game? Not the playoff game. Do you think they got it right with the Buffalo Bills and Cincinnati game? They've decided to just just the game was canceled. Yeah. And so, it affects a lot of teams. It affects the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, of course, right now the Chiefs are blowing out the Vegas Raiders. So It doesn't look like Cincinnati would have had a shot at that number 1 seed, but they would have had a shot at number 2. And had the Steelers squeaked in, that would have been their team to go up against in the first week of the playoffs. Yeah. How do you feel about the way they handled it? Do you think it's fair? Do you think there's maybe another option that they should have gone down?
Well, it's a tricky type thing. You really had to sit down, which I'm sure the NFL did, and really propose almost everything, every outcome possibility you could probably think of. I think it was either one of two things. You either do not continue the game, you don't resume it, you call it a no contest, or number 2, you would push the playoffs back a week and then continue that game. So obviously they decided to do the one where they're not going to continue it, and I'm okay with that. I mean, just given the circumstances and stuff like that, it's hard to try to implement that and have to push everything back. Like it's multiple things have to go into doing that. But that's the thing with the teams that it does affect, or who could maybe get the 2nd seed, the AFC Championship being at a neutral site this year. So it's one of those things, like I just view it as it is what it is. It's something that obviously if you're a fan of a team that might be able to make a run to that, or if you're on the team, like not being able to have a home field at the AFC Championship is, does kind of suck, but neither team's getting an advantage with that. So they did kind of try to even it out, balance it the best they could. It's just, that's the thing. No matter what decision they would have made, not everybody would have been happy about it.
I agree 100%. There was not a win-win. There's going to be somebody upset. Somebody's going to lose out in a certain area. I would have liked to have seen the 8 teams, just because that means the Steelers would have a much better chance of being in there.
Yeah.
At least getting a chance to see the Steelers play at least one more game. Now, they probably would have been against the 2nd seed, hopefully, maybe, and somebody would have been behind them, so they would have taken on the 1st seed. But that was my selfishness. I was hoping for that they would go in there, but they didn't. And the Steelers have a bit of a task in front of them. They need to win this game against the Browns, and they need the Jets to beat the Dolphins, and the Bills to beat the Patriots. Now, the Bills game, from my understanding, is they would have to play that way if they were to win and find themselves in the championship game that's against the Chiefs. Then that game would be at a neutral spot. Now, I read earlier today, I'm not sure how true it is, but I'm fairly positive it is, that Indianapolis didn't want to host that championship game if it happens. So I'm not sure where it is that they're going to host it at. But, I think that's a fair thing. And the Cincinnati Bengals and their fans are probably the ones that are the most pissed about this situation. However, screw them, the Bengals. And so it is what it is. But those are the questions that I had. I want to thank everybody that asked those questions, and I appreciate those. Now we look forward to the Browns and the Steelers in the preview. That right now, the Steelers are expecting to see a lot of Nick Chubb coming into this game. The Browns don't have a Mark Andrews type of player, but they have an Amari Cooper. Who do you think the Steelers need to focus more on? Cooper, who kind of killed the Pittsburgh Steelers the last time they played them, or should they still focus in on Nick Chubb and be a little bit exposed out there in the secondary?
I don't really know. I think it's a different type of thing you got to play now with them having Deshaun playing now. I think I'd still rather take my chances stopping Nick Chubb running, because whenever he's in open field, he's just so dangerous, man. He's got a great skill set. He's one of the best running backs in the league. Cleveland, it's not that they don't have anybody either. With Amari, Donovan Peoples-Jones has been okay, Njoku. They have some guys that can make plays on offense. But that's the thing. Like I think with how the secondary has been playing the last few weeks, I have some confidence in them being able to limit big plays. And I think if they're able to limit big plays down the field, and not let Nick Chubb have his way, I think that's going to bode well.
I agree. I think that's going to be the first main focus point, is going to be stopping Nick Chubb. I don't think Deshaun Watson is that great of a quarterback. Now, I know he's got some stats and he's played well in Houston at certain points, but I never thought of him as being that guy, especially at the rate of his pay that the Cleveland Browns are paying him. I didn't think he was worth that amount. And with all the turmoil that's going on, I think this is going to be this is an opportunity for the Steelers to go in there and smack him in the mouth. Right. Very similar to last year when, the season ender, or the home season ender against the Browns, they just didn't even look like they wanted to be out there. They were already eliminated from playoff contention. A lot of folks were looking at the fact that Myles Garrett didn't have any stats on the board. It didn't look like he was playing with any heart either in that game. And I don't think they're going to be in a much better position for this game. So I think the Steelers are going to go in there and handle business.
Right.
For the offense, though, you have Najee Harris, who ran for the first time over 100 yards last week. Is that something that he's going to have to do again this week to win, or do you think that the Steelers can kind of maybe pass in this game a little bit more and still become victorious?
Yeah, I think they got to have some type of production again with Harris and Warren. They've both been running the ball really well together. Offensive line's been gelling better than how kind of they were in the first half of the year. So they gotta get something there. They gotta have some type of balance. You don't want to get too run heavy. You don't want to get too pass heavy, just because when you become one dimensional on offense, it's hard. So if they're able to find some type of healthy balance, even if they do one a little bit more than the other, whatever's working, yeah. But I think that you can't be conservative, man. I don't think in any type of game anybody should be playing conservative. Like, why? unless that you have a great lead in something like that, then okay. But we saw how the Steelers, they played really conservative last week against the Ravens. And then once it came down to the end, they finally let the ball loose, and then you kind of see what happens. So, and they did that last year. So you got to have some type of balance. You don't want to play too conservative. You don't want to play too soft. You want to be able to attack the areas that you're able to do. But this is also a little bit of a different Browns team than when they faced them earlier in the year also. And I think with where the Steelers are as well, I think they're a different team than where they faced the Browns week 3 as well. So it's kind of a few things you can kind of take away from what we saw in the first matchup, but I think that there's just a lot more different than what we're seeing now compared to what we saw earlier in there. So whatever works, yeah, stick to it, but you just don't want to get too predictable. You don't want to get too similar with everything, like how they were doing with the Ravens: run, pass. Oh, the runs work. We're going to run on first down. We're going to run on second and long, and then you put yourself in a hole. So you can't be doing that. Maybe you start off throwing on first down a few more times. Maybe you start off, maybe you throw on a second a 2nd and 7 instead of running to try to get 3-4 more yards or something like that. I don't know. You gotta take whatever the defense gives, but you can't have the same game plan you had last week.
Yeah, no, I agree. And one thing that frustrated me a lot about last week and the play calling, so to speak, was the lack of play action pass, especially when the fact that the Steelers were able to run the ball effectively and were running it often. And so I felt that, the defense wasn't respecting a possible play action pass. They were, trying to, tackle Najee or Jalen Warren, whoever had the ball, and were flowing to that direction. Fortunately, the offensive line was doing very well. Najee and Jalen Warren were making moves and were able to get into open field and break off a couple of runs there, for 5, 6, 7 yards. I think Najee had a long of 15. But, his average was 111 yards. As a team, the Pittsburgh Steelers ran for 198 yards. I thought, it was a good formula for success. But what it did do was limit the amount of possessions that the Pittsburgh Steelers had. And that was one thing that I had mentioned before. That game going into the Ravens game was, you're going to have a team in both sides that want to run the ball. And when you have that, if they're somewhat effective, that's gonna create some time of possession issues for the fact that you're going to limit your possessions, and you're going to have to make best with those possessions. And scoring 3 points needs to change. It needs to turn into 7. I think that's the next step for the Pittsburgh Steelers, is putting up more touchdowns and field goals or field goal attempts. And they got an opportunity this week. We have a question here, a question for me, but I'll ask you the same. Dante and Kyler say, Daniel, is your opinion on Kenny the same? How can I respond to this? My opinion was pre the bye, and a lot of people saw this as a negative thing, but it really wasn't. My opinion was, the Steelers are 2-6 at this point. If they end up with a top 5, top 10 pick, that means that they were 2-13, 14, somewhere around there, 2-15, 3 and whatever. Then he was probably didn't do so well. I knew that the defense was going to be coming back, and they were going to be coming back healthy. I also said that if down the end, if he can go 5-4 and show some progress, that I think that he could be a guy that the Steelers can work around. Now, everybody heard the first part of my statement and automatically assumed that I was hating on him when I said, no, the rest of the season needs to finish. But at that point in the season, I think we were flirting with the first overall pick of the draft. And so, I've stated before and since then, I think that Kenny's progressed very well. In these last 2 games, I've seen some things that I really like in him. He has that, he's shown those things that I wanted to see, those uncoachable intangibles, not blinking in the face of adversity to copy a Tomlinism, going out there and in the last, seconds of the game or minutes of the games and the most weighty moments of the games, going out there and performing, and not just performing, but executing and succeeding. I think that those are things that you want to see in your young quarterback. I brought it up earlier in the season. I said, hey, and this was against the Raiders game when I was on the post-game show for the Behind the Steel Curtain. I said, earlier this season, Kenny Pickett was put in a similar position against the Miami Dolphins where he had the opportunity to win the game late in the game twice. And he threw interceptions in both of those situations. And in this game, or in these last two games, in the same situation, he's driven the ball down the field and scored touchdowns. That's progression. That's development. That's moving in the right direction. Are there some things I want to see clear up? Yeah. Am I concerned about things? Probably not anymore. I was concerned about the arm strength. I was concerned about, getting the ball down the field. But last week against the Ravens, he had some zip on the ball. He was able to push the ball through. It wasn't as windy as some games could be, but it was still pretty gusty in that game. And yet he was able to, and against the Raiders as well. And in those games, he was able to move the ball down the field and effectively. Is there some things I want to see him clear up? Yeah, I think he needs to not, leave the pocket sometimes so early. He'll leave a little bit early, but that's, he's a rookie quarterback. I expect those things to be developed throughout, through game situations, practice, and just, not being a rookie. And so, I like what I see in him. I think he's going to be a guy that's the next quarterback. What are your thoughts on Kenny Pickett and how have they changed since the bye week?
It's my thoughts honestly haven't really changed other than just you're seeing him taking right steps. You're seeing better decision making than what you saw early on. You're seeing more what's the word I'm looking for? You're seeing more where he's not. I'm trying to think of the right word I want to use here, but forget that. What I'm seeing now compared to before the bye when Kenny was put into the situations he was in, you're seeing someone who is, to me, seems more he seems more meshed and gelled with everybody on offense, with Deontay and Pickens and Freiermuth, compared to when he was before. And just sometimes you had guys that were off. Sometimes you had some frustrations and stuff like that before, like Deontay getting frustrated or guys open, stuff like that. He's making better decision making. He's stepping up in those moments that matter rather than the opportunities that had themselves before, like what you mentioned, Daniel. I'm seeing somebody that whenever it's there, he's able to make the passes down the field. And I know that was something early on that he wasn't really quite maybe doing as much. And I don't know if that's something because the Steelers didn't want that, or if it was some type of confidence thing. I don't know, whatever it is, but you're seeing more of that. You're seeing him be able to make the throws that, here we go. You're seeing him wanting to make the throws that that really many have been wanting to see the rookie make, and he's been doing that. He's making good decisions in the sense of being able to use his legs. The drifting from the pocket's going to come with time, but there's no denying you're seeing from where he was here when he first started and was thrown into everything, and he's working himself week at a time up. And it's just, I think the thing that just sticks out to me the most and what I've seen is that he's not afraid of the moment. He's not afraid of, it's never too big for him. He's his confidence level. He's not afraid to make mistakes. Sometimes quarterbacks, when they make mistakes, it kind of haunts them. We've seen that with Zach Wilson, Sam Darnold, right? We've seen it with multiple other different quarterbacks that kind of start to get a little scared or worried about throwing the ball. And with Kenny, it's something that doesn't faze him. And I'm not comparing him to Ben, but Ben was honestly the same way. Like Ben would have a game where he'd throw freaking 3-4 interceptions in a game, but yet you knew that you could still win the game with him. And with Kenny's side, whenever he has a mistake or something like that, like he's a gamer, he's a competitor, and I think that those are things that you want from your quarterback, and even someone that's a rookie, it's still impressive. But I'm seeing each week after the bye week, you're seeing more things that you want to see him do. And sure, he's not blowing up the stat sheet, but he doesn't really need to blow up the stat sheet. Every rookie quarterback's different. I think a lot of people have their mindset on when they think rookie quarterback, they want clear production right away. And that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And the Steelers didn't really do anything good by Kenny, the way they threw him into the fold, and especially against a brutal schedule like that. I don't really know what anybody really expected. But after really that bye week hit and you had a week off and you're able to kind of not have as brutal of a schedule either, you're able to see the growth. You're able to see the steps taken that you wanted to see. So I think everybody should be encouraged by what they've seen.
I agree 100%. I think he's doing well. I think that encouraging is definitely the word that you want to, you want to use when you look at this team as a total. This team struggled to get first downs early on this season. And they struggle to put drives together. They struggle to put back-to-back drives together. And they struggle to put quarters together and then games. And you've seen that progression throughout the entire year. And I think that that's a product of a young team growing and developing. And I mentioned it many times before. You had a center and a right guard who are new to the team. You have your left tackle, your running back, and your tight end all in their second year. You have Kenny Pickett and your probably your number one wide receiver as rookies. And so it's a young team growing and developing together. They just lost their franchise quarterback, a quarterback that was able, was 18 years in the NFL. He was like a coach out there. So he was able to tell people what to do and where to be at. And even if they didn't understand or know, he could explain that to them on a one-on-one level in the huddle or as they're moving down the field. That we had to wait for that type of chemistry and communication with a new quarterback here. And so, my biggest flaw for the Pittsburgh Steelers this year was the fact that they didn't start Kenny Pickett right off the bat. I felt that if he had a full training camp as this number one, getting the number one reps, and then going into preseason and taking all the first team reps with the preseason, that by the time he went into the regular season, the schedule wasn't as daunting as it was when they entered him in there. By that time, I felt that he probably would have been a lot more comfortable and those games would have been a lot more competitive. We've seen the progression since in the development. I think the Steelers should be excited, and the Steeler fans should be excited for the future, because I think that we're going to be a team that's going to be a contender for a long time. But with that said, going into tomorrow's game, what do you want to see? What stat for Kenny Pickett needs to happen that you would be comfortable or say that, all right, that's the next step? Is it just a W, or do you want to see, actually maybe more than one touchdown through the air?
Yeah, I want them to give him a little bit more opportunity. He was handcuffed last week. I think, too, the Steelers just didn't want to replicate of the last time they played the Ravens, and they wanted to obviously run the ball a lot more. But you got to take the handcuffs. You got to take the handcuffs off. He can. He's capable of moving the ball. He's capable of airing the ball out and everything like that. And you're gonna have to. Are you standing? You're gonna have to take some chances this game, and that's what I want to see. It's not even just if he has multiple touchdown throws. I want to see some completed drives. I want to continue to see him moving the ball up the field, getting them in position to score, even if they settle for a few field goals. You definitely want to see some more touchdowns. Obviously, that's been a problem all year, and that's something that they're going to have to work on in the offseason to get better next year. But to me, a rookie quarterback that is able to drive the team up the field more times than not, have productive drives, put them in scoring position, I would take that 10 times out of 10, even if they don't get the touchdowns they need, rather than seeing a rookie quarterback struggle to do that and not be able to lead them up the field. So it's something for me. Yeah, I think everybody wants to see Kenny be able to throw multiple touchdowns, which is something he hasn't done yet, which is okay. That's going to come. Kenny's done a good job each game, leading them up the field, having some productive drives, getting them in the red zone. The issue has just been getting it in there. And like I said, that's been all year, whether he was playing quarterback or not. So that's something that will come with time. That's something that needs to be fixed. We all know that. But I like just seeing him being able to move the ball effectively, efficiently. And I think if they're able to do that, if they're able to capitalize a couple times in the red zone, I think that will really help them this game. So that's kind of more so what I'm looking for. Now, sure, we don't want them to turn the ball over, but that's really the main thing I'm looking for. Just seeing consistent drives, hoping to finish at least a couple of them, a few of them. Not going to finish all of them, but that's what I want to continue to see. What I want to continue to see him keep doing on offense, continue to make good decisions. But they need to give him some opportunity to do that. They can't put the handcuffs on. They can't play scared. They can't play safe. They have to let him be able to just be himself, trust him, and you're going to have to take a couple chances.
I agree. And what I want to see, and Zach asked me if I was standing. I'm not. I'm sitting. I will now. This is what I want to see. Pickett to Pickens.
I should have got you that for your birthday.
Pickett to Pickens. That's exactly what I want to see. I want to see that early and often. And I want to see the targets go up for Pickens. And I want to see the ball, obviously, him score some touchdowns and things of that nature. I think those things are coming. You're absolutely right. They're able to move the ball up and down the field. And, the problem has been getting it into the end zone once they've reached the red zone. And again, it's a young team. It's developing. Connor Hayward has been getting more reps, and I think he's doing a fantastic job. I think he's been a surprise to the offense and a fresh look. Not just catching the ball, but also running. He sealed the game against the Raiders with a 21-yard run. And so, I think, this team is progressing in the right direction. I like where they're going. And,
right.
A lot of flack was given to this offense because the Steelers didn't put a lot of money into the offense, but they put a lot of high draft value into it. And in my opinion, that's the formula of success that you want to follow. And I mentioned this earlier on in the season. I was like, man, so many teams get praised for, having a quarterback on a rookie contract or a receiver on a rookie contract, such as Burrow and Chase, and then spending their money on the defense. But when the Steelers do the same thing, it's like they get ridiculed for it. And they're spending too much money. I don't like it. But, talking about the defense real quick, the defense here hasn't allowed more than 20 points for majority of the season. The opposition, there's been a few games where they have, but for the most part, they've put a lid on a lot on the situation. Right. This upcoming game, we have a team that's going to be running the ball quite a bit. Last week, Devin Bush only had a handful of snaps. Is that something that you think is going to happen again this week? Or do you think we're going to see more Devin in this game and less Mark Robinson?
Well, you definitely got to give credit to defense. Defense, I didn't really think was very good the first half of the season. Yes, they didn't have TJ Watt, but they had multiple other guys out there that kind of disappointed throughout that. But you got to give credit where how far they've come. You got to give credit that they're playing good football. And that's something, again, for them to build off of next year. You can obviously bring in a couple guys through free agency to strengthen that. But they've had a Super Bowl caliber type of defense the last few years. And I still think that this defense hasn't even hit what it can do. 2019 was phenomenal. 2020 was great. Last year was a little bit of a letdown. This year, the first half was disappointing, but the second half, they've done a really good job. So stuff with Devin Bush, I think it just depends on what they're seeing offensively. I think Mark Robinson deserves some more opportunity. He's a guy that's a good tackler. He's not afraid to hit. Devin Bush, on the other hand, is a little bit afraid to hit. It seems like he doesn't get off the blocks that well. He's not the same player he was his first year or two in the league. And I'm fine with if they don't really play him much. I don't know if Miles Jack's supposed to be back. But I think I'd rather, honestly, at this point, just see really what Mark Robinson can do. Because we all know what Devin Bush is now. This is probably really the player Devin Bush is going to be the rest of his career. I think the injury did a lot with it. Sometimes players come back from that. Sometimes they don't. And I don't think Devin Bush has just really come back from that injury. And Mark Robinson, on the other hand, first-year guy, he's young, see what he can do. Put him in certain situations and critical moments and stuff like that, and see what he's capable of doing. So I'd probably rather see some more of him. Devin Bush, obviously, he's just not really cutting it. Otherwise, he'd be playing every snap. So I think I'd prefer probably to see some more of him, to be honest.
I agree. I was watching some tape, and man, that guy finds the ball. He finds the ball, Mark Robinson, and he's not afraid to put his face in the pile and or up against somebody and hit somebody.
No, he's not.
You know, he's a physical beast, and I'm looking forward to seeing him play. And I'd like to see the Steelers go out and get another middle linebacker this offseason to pair up with him. Maybe even a free agent like Tremaine Edmonds. I've been harping that all season. You know, he's going to be a free agent. Hopefully he ends up in the black and gold.
Yeah.
Sean American Rebel says, I think Tomlin will interview for OC. I'd like to have Leftwich, but think Tomlin will keep Canada and I trust Tomlin. Now, there's been some reports here recently that the Steelers are going to talk with Kenny Pickett and see what he wants to do with the offensive coordinator. I'm not sure if I like that approach. You know, that's kind of like asking students to pick their teacher, so to speak. Now, I understand the students are the future, and there's some teachers that are bad. But, you know, anytime there's a hiccup or somebody who doesn't like anything, I mean, you could think of the offensive coordinators that Big Ben wasn't a fan of. And those that he wasn't a fan of, he did better with. You know, he wasn't the biggest fan of Todd Haley. He did better with Todd Haley. He liked Randy Fichtner, and we all saw what happened there. And so, you know, I'm not sure if I like that approach of going to your quarterback and asking him who you want as an OC. What do you think about that approach and that potential outcome?
Well, I think one of the big things Tomlin has gotten flack for is his hires when it comes to coordinators. It seems like a lot of them don't really last that long. They don't really quite work out. And I'd rather just see maybe of course he'll be involved, but maybe we see a little bit more of the front office involved. And yeah, busy day at work. Z, I'm sure it is. I'll see you at 12:30 tonight, midnight. But I think that I'm just not a fan of Matt Canada. And the offense, yes, they're winning games, but I still think the offense is handcuffed with him. I still think that there's a lot left to be desired there from a play calling standpoint. I don't think he always puts his guys in the best place to succeed or in their strengths. And I'm sure he's a cool dude, but it's okay to not be good in this area, but be better in this area. And so I don't think he's really that good in this area as a play caller, but maybe as somebody as a QB coach in the league, or maybe just not in the pro level, he can be better in. I want to see an offensive coordinator that has been involved in how modern day NFL offense is. I don't want to see Mike Sullivan hired. I don't want to see an offensive coordinator hired that coached in 2009. Don't want to see that. I'd like to see somebody who has been a part of an organization that has been on the ups with their offense in today's league and implement those type of things into a young Steelers offense. I just don't think Canada. I just, a lot of his decisions blow my mind. Now, I give credit to him when things work out, of course, but I think that sometimes, I don't know if he tries to outsmart himself, but sometimes it's just stale. There's not enough there. We saw it last week. We've seen it multiple times this year in terms of very questionable calls or why you would have this and do that instead. And that's a whole nother topic that you can literally make a whole half-hour video on, really dissecting, going back, looking at film, looking at things, whatever it is. But I think Mike Tomlin's a great coach, but he has not done that good of a job when it's come to selecting his guys he wants as an OC, a DC. You want someone in there that just does their job. And sometimes it feels like, and I think Tomlin even said that he's involved in both aspects.
Right.
So is that a hindrance to them too? I don't quite know. But I think at the end of the day, there still needs to be some personnel change, and you have a young offense, and I think you want to do that sooner than you do later.
Yeah, I mean, I don't fall too far off of that. You know, I think that, I've said it all year that this team is young and they need time to evolve into the playbook and learn it and understand it. Matt Canada came out earlier and he was talking about this team, and he said some things that kind of sounded like maybe perhaps he's listening to me. He said, you can't just give the the playbook to this, young team. And he was also referencing to Connor, Hayward Connor. He's like, would you want him to come in day one, know the entire playbook and give these players the entire playbook and they understand it? Yeah, but that's not feasible. They have to evolve, and as they evolve, you have to manage and limit what they can do. And that way you don't put them in a worse position. Right. And so, I've seen this offense develop a lot better in the last few weeks. I've seen the running game develop a lot better, and far exceed, in my opinion, the imagination on the running side has been higher than what's been there on the passing side. I don't like the fact that they don't play too much play action pass, especially when you have a team that's running the ball well right now and consistently. A play action pass would keep the defense honest, and it would allow for even bigger runs and things of that nature, even maybe a chunk play or two down the field, which is something that the Pittsburgh Steelers also seem to lack as well.
Yeah.
And so, and with that aspect, if Matt Canada ends up getting canned at the end of the season, I'm not going to lose any sleep for it. Right. I just think that, is there going to be some growing pains going into next season? Probably so. The team's going to have to learn a new playbook. They're going to have to understand the playbook and know what they're supposed to be doing. I often say that, when you get these young offensive coordinators and they end up getting hired on as head coaches somewhere and they fail, that's typically because they're implementing their entire offense with a new team. And usually when you're taking over a new team as a head coach, you're also drafting a high quarterback in that draft. And if you're giving that rookie quarterback a tremendous amount of, information to process and to do, it's not going to be the formula for success that you're anticipating. Right. Those things need to grow and develop appropriately.
Right.
But at the same time, like you have to put your team at the same in favorable positions and not running play action pass, not targeting George Pickens more than a handful of times a game. Those are issues, and those are issues that are possibly from the offensive coordinator. And so, yeah, I'm not opposed to Canada being gone. If he is, I'm not going to lose sleep. If he's back next season, I think this team is going to still continue to develop. How far or how high they can develop at that point will be left to be seen. If the Steelers end up kind of, status quo is what they've been for the last few years, under 10 wins or whatnot, then having to, hope or depend on other teams to make the playoffs, then yeah, I'm all for getting somebody at that point 100%. This year I'm open to it. I'm not sad if it goes one way or another. Yeah. But, I think that if Matt Canada can find his way into, the Pittsburgh Steelers can find themselves into a playoff win this year, I don't think he's gone. I really don't. I think he's going to be back next year. And like I said, I'm not against it. I'm not for it. It's kind of like a stagnant position for me. I'm just like, well, I'm good either way.
Yeah. No, I understand that. I understand the things that come with it. You got things with Canada where he's had a few different quarterbacks, and sometimes you got to give coaches time. I've always been somebody that has always been an advocate of giving coaching time. It's just sometimes when what you're going to get and when it's time. Like the Denver's head coach, he didn't even last a full year. So they knew what he was. They knew he wasn't right for the team, and he's probably suited better as an offensive coordinator somewhere. Canada, it can be kind of the same thing. He's just not fit. He's just not fit. Or if they decide to continue to hope that he can work out the offense with this young team, then okay. And if not, then you move on. I just don't want it to see too little too late, if that makes sense. I don't want to see them going to next year having the same offensive struggles, and then you got to bring somebody else new in, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
That's the only thing with it. So it's going to be a decision. It's going to probably be one of the bigger decisions this offseason. What do you think about Mitch Trubisky's comments about wishing he didn't sign in for Incy right away?
I think that means he's not going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler after this year.
See you later, dude. See you later.
Yeah. Which is going to be then, all right, it's not the biggest concern in the world. I mean, you can always go get a veteran off free agency. You can always, get an undrafted rookie or pick up a quarterback late, 6th, 7th round. Because Mason Rudolph's not going to be here next year either. Mitch Trubisky is probably going to be trade bait, I would assume. I would put him out there ASAP. Right now, Derek Carr is another guy that is going to be, out there on the trading block, so to speak, at the end of the season. So you want to put these two guys out there and together and see what kind of attention you can get. Maybe you can get a 5th or 4th round. Either way, I think, if the Steelers cut him, right now, I think he's owed $10 million on the cap next season. And a lot of his contract was incentivized, right? And so he's not going to have those incentives. So the Steelers would be $10 million. And if they cut him before the season starts, they only owe him $2 million. So they save $8 million.
Yeah. I think that's what the case. I think they're just going to cut him.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And Gene Smith says, bring back Dobbs. That's a good possibility. I mean, he's a smart guy. He's also a guy that can move around a little bit. He's a little bit more athletic than what Ben was. And, he's not as athletic as Kenny Pickett, but he is some guy that can move and can throw on the run. And he would be a guy that I would feel is comfortable being a backup quarterback. George Teston also said, did anybody see the ring around play, Rosie play that the Chiefs did? I saw that. I agree. I thought that was kind of funny or odd. I didn't think it was a what's the word I'm looking for? It was a bit gadgety. I don't think that's gonna be a play that you want to surround your offense around. But I thought it was interesting at the very least, and I thought that and it would have worked if it wasn't for a BS holding penalty. I'll be honest with you. I wasn't going for the Chiefs to win this game. I was actually hoping the Raiders would, but I got to call it as I see it, and that was not a holding penalty. But we're getting kind of long in the tooth here. I want to get your prediction on the game tomorrow. And do you think the Steelers are going to be playing another week after this one?
It's tough, man. It's really tough. It's going to be Flacco versus Skylar Thompson. Bills, I think that I have full confidence in them to beat the Patriots. I do. Dolphins-Jets game is the one that gets me. I'm going to pick the Steelers to beat the Browns. Steelers are going the right direction. Cleveland's got some crap. I'm going to say Steelers 21. I'm going to say Cleveland 19. I think that's going to be my final score there, which I think is a fair one. So the Steelers are going to finish 9-8, and Tomlin's not going to have another win. He's going to have another winning season, which I said, even if the Steelers don't get in the playoffs, or if they do and they lose in the first round, one of the two. I said, this is not just for this year. This is for the future. This is for these young guys on this team. This is for the team as a whole, seeing how they were and where they came, playing meaningful football in the last week of the season. Don't think many predicted that. So it's a great thing that they did this season. With that being said, do the Steelers live on another day? Oh, this is tough, man, because Flacco, Thompson, my God. Need to give me a second here, Daniel. I'm going to say they do. Miami. I'm going to say they do. I'm going to say Joe Flacco defeats the Dolphins. I believe it's in New York, right?
I think it's in Miami.
Is it Miami? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Flacco comes up clutch. Skylar Thompson cannot get the job done. I know he's got Jalen Waddle. He's got Tyreek Hill. But the Dolphins are on a big decline right now. And I think Flacco, just for good old time's sake, man, he's going to win for the New York Jets. He's going to win for the Steelers. The Steelers get in as a 7th seed of the playoffs.
Wow, that'd be awesome, man. That would be great. For me, I think the Steelers are going to take care of business against the Browns. I think they're going to win inspired. I think that they're moving in the right direction. I think the Browns are moving in the opposite direction. They're fighting with each other. There's tantrums being thrown by defensive linemen. I think that the Steelers are going to win this game 24-16. So it's not like a huge win, but it's more than 3 points. You know, win comfortably, probably taking control of this game. Again, this is a game where the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to have to do the best with the opportunities that they have. You know, both teams here want to run the ball, and so that's going to eat up time of possession, and time of the game is going to go very quick. I think the Steelers and the Ravens only had one possession each in the first quarter last week. I don't think that's going to be the case this week, but I don't see them having more than 2 possessions in that first quarter. You know, so the Steelers are going to have to put some touchdowns. They're going to have to be aggressive. I think they win. I think the Bills do take care of the Patriots. You know, I'm the game everybody's worried about is the Miami and the Jets game. You're absolutely right. You know, Thompson versus Flacco. I'm going to say this,
tough, man. You got to sit there and think.
I've been thinking about it, and I haven't said it out loud, but I do think the Steelers are going to play in the playoffs and have another week to go. I do think that the New York Jets are going to beat the Miami Dolphins. Maybe that's a little bit more homer in me than it should be, so to speak, because I want the Jets to win, because I want the Steelers to move forward. You know, that rushing attack and their, you know, the offense that the Miami Dolphins have and their speedy receivers. It's going to be a challenge for the Jets. You know, it really is. But, you know, when you have a quarterback that's just not the guy or that guy at the moment, that can really bring down the rest of your team. And so, you know, Flacco, he's not a guy, but at one point he was an okay, you know, he was a Super Bowl MVP, wasn't he? And so, you know, he's been a guy before. He's not played a lot this year, so there's not that much tape on him. And he hasn't played in a while, so he might be a little bit rusty, but you know, I would take that over, you know, the not so much tape over the possible rust, just because, you know, how many quarterbacks have come into the game unexpectedly and, whoa, hey, they're doing very good. And then the following week, once there's tape and there's, you know, an idea that this person's going to be the quarterback, it's not so much the same, you know, the same story. And so,
right.
I think in this game, I think it's going to be it's going to be close, man. Everybody's going to be watching that, you know, scoreboard, watching on both of those games to see what happens. I'm going to be in stadium. I'll be doing the same thing as well.
Right.
Checking the scores early and often. But man, I do think the Steelers are going to live on for at least one more week. After that, who knows? But once you get in the dance, you got a chance.
You do. You do.
But any final words, Nathan, before we let everybody go?
Yeah, I think that no matter what, I don't think any Steeler fan should be disappointed. I don't think any Steeler fan should be upset. I think that looking what they've done this second half of the year should honestly give encouragement about the future of the team. And I think everybody, no matter how things go, I think that you should just sit back and enjoy it, man. It's the last game of the year. The Steelers have made things interesting up until the final game of the year, which is absolutely remarkable. You got to give credit to Mike Tomlin. You got to give credit to some of the young guys. You got to give credit to the guys that hold down the fort. And it's going to be fun. So sit back, enjoy it. Last game of the year. And what happens, happens. But it should be encouraging regardless for the future of this organization. And I'm going to leave it on that. And you guys can follow me at In Hindsight right there on my YouTube channel. If you haven't given it a sub, please do. I like to put out content with Steelers, other football stuff, things that aren't Pittsburgh related. So feel free to give it a follow as well. Give a follow to Mark's channel. He wasn't able to be here with us tonight. Steelers Nation Australia. We will be back on my channel Tuesday. We will obviously be talking about the outcome of Sunday. Obviously, we could be talking about a Steeler playoff game that weekend or no. We will see. But a shout out to all you guys in the chat who tune into the shows, who put your thoughts out there, your questions, and everything like that. A lot of you guys are consistent returning people that tune into the channels and everything like that. So shout out to you guys. We always appreciate you guys. We want you to be a part of the channel. And to those who are new, welcome. We're glad to have you. So fun show, good show to talk about going into a big game this season. last game of the year, but a big game nonetheless. And so we're going to leave it at that. But I think we should all just sit back and just be excited, see what happens.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It'll be a good one. I'm looking forward to it. Please, everybody, hit that like and subscribe button on your way out. Make sure you go check out Nathan at In Hindsight. Check out Mark at Steelers Nation Australia. Again, he couldn't make it. He's going out on Facebook Marketplace, checking out a couple of tables. So he's checking out how buoyancy they are. And so I appreciate everybody here. That being said, we're the Unofficial Steelers Podcast. We'll see y'all next week. Peace.
Welcome to the Unofficial Steelers Podcast, the podcast so unofficial it doesn't have a home. Here's your host, from In Hindsight, Nathan Heintz. From Steelers Nation Australia, Mark Davidson. And from State of the Steelers, Daniel J. Here we go!